Hi, I'm Tiffany. Welcome to Towering TBR. If you're like most readers, you probably got some books for Christmas. Several of these are incredibly stunning, and I'm very excited to show you what I received. There is a mix of read books and unread books. And if you like bookish videos, make sure to like and subscribe so you can see all of my bookish content. So, first up is this gorgeous collection of Bronte sister classics. There is Villette, Jane Eyre, Wuthering Heights, and The Tenant of Wildfell Hall. These are the Penguin cloth-bound editions, and they are incredibly gorgeous. I started my collection last year with David Copperfield, and I'm very excited to get more. I have never fully read anything written by Bronte sister. I did start Jane Eyre as a kid in middle school, but got distracted, put it down, and never finished it. So I will probably be starting with Jane Eyre. I also saw Chattie recently read The Tenant. Actually, she reread The Tenant of Wildfell Hall, and it sounds like a really important feminist piece of literature. And so I will also be eagerly gravitating towards that as well. As for Villette and Wuthering Heights, I don't really know anything about what they are. So if you've read them, let me know if you would recommend or not. I received 3 more individual Penguin cloth-bound editions. I have this gorgeous yellow and orange book. This is Don Quixote by Miguel de Cervantes. I read this year and found it really enjoyable, really funny, and I'm glad to have this beautiful copy. It is all about Don Quixote and how he has read about knights and decides he wants to bring back knighthood and chivalry and go on adventures in order to claim land and to marry a princess. He is masterfully delusional, and which makes for some really comedic situations. I also received Oliver Twist by Charles Dickens. I've never read this book, but like I mentioned earlier, I have started reading Charles Dickens with David Copperfield and also A Christmas Carol, and I'm eager to check this one out as well. I have seen the play, Oliver, so I am familiar with the story, but I'm glad to have this beautiful copy. The last Penguin cloth-bound edition is another Dickens. This is A Tale of Two Cities, and I don't know much about it. I've never read A Tale of Two Cities. So let me know if you think it's worth prioritizing getting to sooner rather than later. I received the book Everything Sad is Untrue by Daniel Nayeri. This is a middle grade memoir of him and his family. They were living in Iran, but when his mother converted to Christianity and was found out by government officials, they put a fatwa on her head, basically kind of a death sentence. And she smuggles her 2 children out of Iran and moves to the United States. So we have him as a kid living in the United States and really kind of the culture shock and the things that are really different. But I think the thing that makes this book really worth reading is he is incredibly proud of his Persian heritage, and he really likes weaving stories and parables in with his stories. He is just a masterful storyteller. I have read another book of his in which he also does a great job with storytelling, and I will pick up anything he writes because it's just gorgeous. I also received Tress of the Emerald Sea by Brandon Sanderson. I have not read any Brandon Sanderson. I am a little bit intimidated by the epic nature of fantasy. But this is a retelling of The Princess Bride, and I've heard it's incredibly comical, very easy to read, and just a riveting story. I've heard a ton of praise about Brandon Sanderson, and I think this is going to be the book I start with. If you saw my November wrap-up, you will see that I really, really loved The Anthropocene reviewed by John Green, and I was lucky enough to get a copy for Christmas. This is a wonderful book of essays, primarily written during lockdown in 2020, about various facets of human life, and looked through a lens of really appreciating quite a lot of the things we took for granted before the pandemic. I can't wait to reread this and annotate it because the first time I read it was a library copy, and I I wasn't about to deface a library copy, so I'm excited I have my own now. I received this gorgeous edition, The Day of the Triffids by John Wyndham. This is a classic post-apocalyptic sci-fi about 7-foot-tall plants that somehow become a menace to humanity. It sounds really riveting, and I love this copy. I think it's gorgeous. I'm collecting in this edition, which is the Modern Library Edition. I also received Yami Hara by Mizuki Sujimura. This was translated from Japanese, and honestly, I don't know much about this. I picked it up because it was her newest book, and I think it's about a creepy boy. I think it might even lean into horror, but I loved the first book of hers that I read, The Lonely Castle in the Mirror, so I'm excited to try what else she has. I received Ill Feelings by Alice Hattrick. This is a blend of memoir, medical history, and literary nonfiction. The author has ME, which is also known as chronic fatigue syndrome, and highlights some of the challenges she's gone through. She talks about her managing her symptoms and talks about other invisible illnesses as well. The only downside to this book is it does not yet have an audiobook, and if you're new here, I have chronic migraines, which make it difficult for me to read with my eyes solely, so I rely heavily on audiobooks as an accommodation. I can read with my eyes, it just takes much longer, so I'll have to wait till I'm feeling really good to pick this book up. I already had a copy of this book, but as it's my favorite of the year, Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula K. Le Guin, I was able to get this gorgeous edition. And I'm just so glad because the copy I had previously was a little bit beat up and battered, and I'm glad I have a nice, lovely copy. This is a classic science fiction story. It is fascinating, it is fast-paced, and there are a lot of interesting questions that get posed, really giving you something to think about. Highly recommend. I also received Memories Legion by James S.A. Corey. This is a bind-up of all of the short stories and novellas that come before and in between the regular books. I have read all of them up to book 8. So there are a couple more short stories in here that I haven't read yet, but I'm glad to have them all in this convenient bind-up. And lastly, I got How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. This is a very famous self-help book. I don't typically read self-help, but this is all about charisma and making friends and being influential. And you may not know it from my videos, but I'm kind of an awkward person, and I would like to work more on that. And so I think that this might be a really good book to dip in and out of to work on my charisma. This has been around for decades. This is just the most recent edition. Has anybody read this? What are your thoughts on it? Was it helpful? Not helpful? I'm eager to hear what you thought of it. All right, I am surrounded by beautiful books. I am so happy to share them. If you received any gifts from yourself or other people, what did you get? I'm curious to know, are you interested in reading any of the books I received? Let's have a chat in the comments below. Thank you so much. Bye.